Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. The Ellettsville Town Council talked about Monroe County's emergency health order at its August 9th meeting. Council member Scott Oldham implied that county policies do not apply within Ellettsville town limits. He said that Ellettsville does not need to do something just because Monroe County is doing it.
We've had some questions. Is Ellettsville enacting a mask mandate? And of course, my colleagues up here may choose to do so. And if so, we'll give everyone an opportunity here in a moment to introduce that. If there's changes that you want to see, I think we need to understand where you'd like to see it go as the town manager, and then we can make modifications as it were. And not to be harsh, but to simply say, well, county's doing this, we need to do that. I don't know that that's necessarily a thought shared by some of the board members.
It's not something I would support. I'll tell you that point blank.
Council member William Ellis suggested that the town council do nothing. He said sometimes the best solution is no solution.
I'll say for me, sometimes the best solution is no solution. Just do nothing. I mean, it doesn't need to, it's not something I think government needs to do. I truly don't, because the right answer, government's good for one-size-fits-all answers. This isn't a one-size-fits-all situation.
Council members did not move to establish any kind of mask rules for Ellettsville. Council member Oldham moved to adjourn. The next Ellettsville Town Council meeting is August 23rd. The Bloomington Plan Commission discussed a rezone for Wheeler Mission Ministries. At the August 9th meeting, senior zoning planner Eric Grulich presented a request to rezone a section of land acquired by the petitioner. He said the petitioner was requesting the rezone so they could expand their use to the new buildings.
They have facilities on the northern and southern buildings, and just recently acquired the building in the middle of the property. And they would like to expand their use on the site to this additional building. And so they are requesting to rezone the property from mixed use employment to mixed use medium scale in order to allow for their use to be legitimized and to allow for the expansion.
Director of Wheeler Mission Ministries, Dana Jones, talked about the expansion. He said the extra space would allow Wheeler Mission to spread their beds out and open more space for other activities.
From the planning department, will provide an area to replace 84 beds from our current facility, thus providing much needed room to prevent overcrowding and assist in preventing the spread of COVID and other communicable diseases. The operations in our newly acquired building will reduce the population in existing 215 Westplex property, where meal service, case management, and residential programs will be located.
During public comment, community members complained that residents of Wheeler Mission often wandered away from the property and created a mess. Jones argued that many of the people in question were not residents of Wheeler Mission. Commissioner Susan Sandberg suggested that a larger conversation about homelessness in Bloomington should be had at the City Council level and not at the Plan Commission level.
I mean, right before us tonight is the issue of moving this to the City Council. And I'm thinking that might be a more robust discussion, actually, than we can have here at the Plan Commission level. But I certainly would be open, if it is the will of this body, to hear this again. But I'm thinking the problem here is more intractable than anything that the Plan Commission is going to be able to address. And it might be better to have this conversation at the City Council level.
Commissioners voted to send the request to the City Council with a positive recommendation, 8-1, with Israel Herrera dissenting. Monroe County Health Administrator Penny Caudle gave an update on the coronavirus to the Monroe County Board of Health. At the August 9th meeting, Caudle talked about the rising number of COVID-19 cases in Monroe County. She said that 57% of eligible county residents are fully vaccinated, but the Delta variant is spreading quickly through non-vaccinated residents.
We may still be in yellow this week in terms of that advisory, but we're going to be very close to orange. So I do believe that if we can get people to continue to vaccinate, mask, practice all the various layers of prevention, use every tool that we have in our toolbox, that we can curb this. But the Delta variant is definitely much easier to spread. That's really what seems to be what we're seeing in Indiana the most. So,
Board member Ashley Craner asked Cottle if she had discussed enforcement with the county commissioners. Cottle said that the commissioners approved a contract for compliance officers. She clarified that fines were on the table and that closure was a last resort option. Legal counsel Margie Rice clarified that the county has discretion when pursuing compliance cases. She said last year every case of noncompliance with COVID-19 restrictions was solved with voluntary compliance.
We would always reach out to the to both the complainer and to the business owner and see if we could sort of figure out what the facts were. And once we felt like we had a pretty good understanding of the facts, and sometimes that required us to use the enforcement officers to do a little investigation for us, or sometimes I had to reach out to the police department and see what I could find out from dispatch records or police records to find out and verify, the he said, she said, and figure out what the facts were. But once we felt like we had a pretty good idea of the facts, we would address how do we quickly get in compliance and how do we get voluntary compliance.
The next Board of Health meeting is August 23rd. At the August 10th Monroe County Council meeting, County Attorney Margie Rice talked about the county health order. Rice addressed the Ellettsville Town Council's suggestion that Monroe County health orders do not affect Ellettsville. She said some cities are authorized to have their own health departments, but she does not believe that applies to towns.
So the state of Indiana has divided up itself into 92 counties, and there is a county health department in each county that has countywide jurisdiction. Now there is authority for some cities to have their own department. I don't believe that same authority applies to incorporated towns. And certainly the health department, when I asked the attorney if she could then direct me to the Ellettsville Health Department so I could talk to them about their jurisdiction. Of course, there is no Ellettsville Health Department.
Rice added that she believed state law required charter schools, such as Seven Oaks Classical School, to follow county health orders as well. Later in the meeting, the county council also discussed creating a new full-time position in the highway department. Highway Director Lisa Ridge requested that council members allow the Highway Department to convert a part-time position to a full-time one. She said the employee requested to work full-time but did not want to work a union job.
Looking at this position right now is actually one of our retirees. He worked for us for over 30 years. He knows how the county works. He would like to work full-time again at the county, but not be in the union and not be out doing snow removal. He feels like he's done his time for that, but he would love to still assist at the county.
County Council Administrator Kim Schell pointed out the job would need an official classification from Wagner, Irwin, Shaley, and Associates, who are currently auditing the county's job descriptions. Rice suggested that council members table the position until the August 24th meeting so they could vote on it with approval from WIS. Council members voted to do so unanimously. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to CATSweek. The Bloomington Commission on Sustainability discussed the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's Climate Change Report. At the August 10th meeting, Assistant Director of Sustainability Lauren Clemens summarized the report, which the IPCC released on August 9th. She outlined the two major takeaways from the report.
The recent technical report really just emphasizes that it's unequivocal that climate change is caused by humans and burning of fossil fuels. And I think that's become increasingly more evident to the general public this summer as the prevalence of wildfires and flooding, and even here in Bloomington, some flooding events have emphasized to more of the public that this is an urgent threat. The other thing that the report really emphasized is that these are happening because of climate change. The attribution science has been more difficult to pin what's an extreme weather event versus specifically related to climate change, but the scientists have a consensus that when we see things like the massive wildfires in the West right now, it is extremely unlikely that that would happen absent climate change.
Commissioner Christina Anderson wondered what commissioners could do broadly to help reduce Bloomington's carbon footprint systemically. Clemens said that the Commission on Sustainability exists as a connection between residents and the City Council. She suggested the Commission could use this link to help educate residents.
For me, the connection between this commission and the community can be strengthened, and it's been difficult to find ways to do that during COVID. It's unclear how much longer we'll have to be virtual, but I liked the idea last time about having a speaker, and if there was a topic where we wanted to invite someone to speak and then do a live stream on social media and have a commissioner organize that, we could continue to do that every couple of months moving forward. And if we're able to transition into a live format, I think the educational connection between this commission and the rest of the community who's looking for ways to productively engage on this issue is important as well, because otherwise I think it's a good body that exists in between both city council and administration and the rest of the public, and bringing issues of concern of the public both parties.
The next Commission on Sustainability meeting is September 14th. The Monroe County Commissioners talked about health order enforcement at their August 11th meeting. County Attorney Jeff Cockrell presented a contract with a security company to help enforce the county's emergency health order. He said the county would be hiring the same company that they hired to help enforce the last coronavirus-related health order.
It is essentially the same agreement we had with Security Pro last year when we needed help with our health orders and their education and enforcement of them. This is the same hourly rate, same not to exceed $25,000. The end date for this is December 15th, 2021. So the hope is that we won't need them that long, but we'll have them for that period of time.
Bloomington Chamber of Commerce Representative Jim Shelton expressed support for the contract. He said having a company handle enforcement and education takes those burdens away from regular employees.
On behalf of the business community, we want to encourage you to approve this as we did at the work session. And thank you very much for providing this help to our businesses to deal with the education and enforcement part, and let the employees do their job. So thanks very much.
The commissioners ratified the contract unanimously. On August 11th, the Bloomington City Council reconvened to continue its August 6th public hearing on annexation. Monroe County Commissioner Lee Jones talked about the county jail. She said the county would need financial support to make the changes necessary to reduce the prison population, and that annexation would take away a large chunk of those funds.
It will be necessary for the county to support these efforts, both financially and with personnel. ARPA may provide some of the funding necessary, but it wouldn't be wise to use that for personnel needs since it is a one-time fund. The county funds that will be most impacted by annexation are the funds that pay for operations and personnel, which will be needed for this effort with our jail.
Resident Pamela Tier Snyder showed concern over public safety. She wondered how an allegedly understaffed Bloomington Police Department could provide better service than what the Sheriff's Department already provides.
We like living in the county. We like our fire protection. We like our Sheriff's Department just fine. How are the police we have now, as everyone has already stated, who are short 40 officers, and I was told that years ago, so that's not something currently, who cannot cover what we already have, be able to cover an additional 6,000 more properties, 14,400 more residents, over 9,000 acres that spread from one corner of this county to the other.
Resident Kylene Crane commented on the economic effect of annexation. She said she opposes annexation because it may reduce funding for county schools and libraries.
And as an MCCSC teacher of 30 years, I am appalled that this annexation could reduce funding for our libraries and the school corporation.
Council members officially closed the public hearing and scheduled a special session on August 31st for first readings and amendments on the annexation ordinances. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of regretting what I do, just to join the crowd.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell. And you would never know it by looking at me.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
there for me every day, believing in me,
showing me what's possible,
I can be strong enough to respect myself and my body.
To say I can rather than I can't.
To say no with no apology.
To be a leader.
To finish school.
To own my future.
To break the cycle.
Girls Inc. believes every girl can succeed. That's why the trained professionals of Girls Inc. are there for our girls every day, supporting, mentoring, and guiding them in a safe, girls-only environment. Building bonds that last for years and change that lasts a lifetime. Girls Inc. gives girls the tools they need to boldly face challenges, to resist peer pressure, to be the first in their families to go to college, to beat the odds. With Girls Inc. in her corner, every girl can be healthy, confident, and resilient. She'll do more than dream about her potential. She'll reach it.
With you in my corner.
With you in my corner, I will not be another statistic.
I will fight for myself.
For my future.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc. Inspiring all girls to be strong, smart, and bold.
Welcome back to CATSweek. The Monroe County Stormwater Management Board considered additional funding for the Lake Monroe Water Fund. At the August 11th meeting, Lake Monroe Water Fund Chairperson Jane Martin addressed concerns that LMWF is competing for the same funding as other Lake Monroe groups. She said her organization acts as a funding gap for organizations like Friends of Lake Monroe.
I believe we fill an important funding gap in our environmental ecosystem, and in fact, will provide critical funding to existing organizations.
Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System Coordinator Kelsey Thetonia showed hesitancy in funding staff positions for non-county organizations. She said the Stormwater Board should focus on funding the maintenance and operation of Monroe County's storm sewer system.
What I see is that the goal of the stormwater utility and the fee that we charge our residents and other property owners, it's for the maintenance and operation of the storm sewer system. And funding a outside staff position that will be for fundraising, it just seems a little bit beyond what our mission is.
County Surveyor Tron Enright Randolph suggested the board table the request until a 2022 meeting. He said this would give the board time to figure out how things like the ongoing watershed study would affect this decision in the future.
I think if we were able to table it into 6 months from now or something, that shows our willingness to continue this discussion, shows that we are semi-supportive, but we're just not in a good place or point in time to finish this. One statement I made last month is, I feel like we need to finish our first project before we take on another project. So we might even be getting, some preliminary feedback of what that conclusive watershed study is going to be looking like.
Board members voted to table the request to their March 2022 meeting 3-1, with Commissioner Penny Githens dissenting. The Bloomington Economic Development Commission discussed issuing notes at its August 11th meeting. Director of the Bloomington Housing Authority, Amber Scobie, presented the request for notes to help acquire property and fund renovations at Crestmont Park. She explained the proposed renovations will improve handicap accessibility and help modernize the units.
The renovation will focus a lot on updating some code requirements. Building this in the 1960s, there are some things that just don't make sense for a modern family today. Handicap accessibility is a large one, adding more units that are handicap accessible, as well as units that allow for those with hearing or visual impairments.
Commissioners voted to approve the resolution 3-0. The resolution will now move on to the Bloomington City Council for final approval. The Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission discussed building an artist studio building. At the August 12th meeting, Commissioner and Petitioner Sam DeSoler presented plans to build a 2-story artist studio in an empty lot on Morton Street near the B Line. He said the McDowell Gardens neighborhood featured a mix of residential and industrial buildings, which he wanted to incorporate into the studio's design.
What I've tried to do is, McDowell Gardens is a great neighborhood. It's got a mix of residential buildings and industrial buildings. And this is somewhere in between. It's not a residential building. It's not exactly an industrial building. I'm going to put a bunch of artist studios in this building, one of those artists being me. I'm in the back bit. And then the rest of the building is going to be relegated to other studio spaces and support spaces.
Resident Elizabeth Cox Ash spoke in support of the project. She said the McDowell Gardens neighborhood plan emphasized the importance of spaces like artist studios.
One of the things that was prominent in the neighborhood plan was to have artist studios. That's all over our neighborhood plan. So historically, this is something the neighborhood has wanted.
Commissioner Chris Sturbaum showed concern for the modern design. He suggested the design could represent historic patterns and still have space for the amenities of an artist studio.
I think that you could make an artist studio and get all of the amenities and still blend and coordinate with historic patterns.
Commissioners voted to approve the COA 4-0 with Commissioners Sam DeSoler and Chris Sturbaum abstaining. The Monroe County Solid Waste Management District looked at its 2022 budget at their August 12th meeting. Board member Isabel Piedmont Smith asked about the metal recycling budget. She wondered if the 2022 metal recycling budget should be higher, considering that 2021 spending on metal recycling has nearly reached budgeted numbers. Executive Director of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District, Tom McGlasson, suggested the market might be inflated due to the coronavirus. He said the board could wait a year and see if the numbers stayed high.
With how that market fluctuates and not being real sure the impact COVID has had on the market, my thought is that prices went up due to some of the challenges with getting materials in from overseas. So scrap became a little more valuable, and I'm not convinced that those rates are going to stay where they are.
Board member Cheryl Munson praised the board's decision to raise the minimum wage for all solid waste management employees. She identified that in 2022, employees would not be making less than $15 an hour.
I think a valuable step by the board to move toward a minimum wage, hourly wage for every employee of $15 an hour. And so 2022 will be the year that we achieve this.
The board approved the 2022 budget 6-0. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.